Hello and welcome back to Talking Sit, the Animal Behaviour and Training podcast. My name's Jade, I'm a clinical animal behaviourist and I am your host. I hope you've really been enjoying the podcast so far. I have been thoroughly enjoying making it for you. I've had 3 fantastic guests and this week is absolutely no different. It's different in the fact that we are taking a little species detour this week. And I am going to be giving you an episode all about feline, that's right, feline behaviour. If you're a cat enthusiast, I hope that you're excited. If you're not, I hope you're still excited because you're going to learn loads of new and interesting things. So, joining me to spill the kibble, please welcome the wonderful Lucy Hoile. Hi, Lucy. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Super, super excited. We've spoken before on social media, but I've actually never met you in
I
person. So
know.
this is going to be like our first best friends chat.
Yes, I love this.
Can you start just by introducing yourself, Lucy? Tell the listeners who you are, what your background is, all that good stuff.
Okay, yep, I'm Lucy Hoyle. I'm a cat behaviourist. Background is I've been a cat behaviourist for this is my 16th year. So I've been a cat behaviourist for a long time, and that's my life all encompassing. I think children and cats.
Excellent, excellent work. So, on that note, tell us about the friends that you have at home with you. I know they're not all cats,
Oh.
but
Yeah, so I have 2 cats. I have Fig, who is like the best co-host ever. He features a lot in like my social media stuff. He's like a black and white, just fluffy mog, and he's so lovely. He's so affectionate,
oh,
but it's like he's affectionate on your term, on his terms. So it's like if you try and stroke him and if you give him too much attention, he's like, no, I don't like you. But if you just back off, he gives you so much attention. So he's really good for that. He's a really good example of like how to make friends with cats. It's really good. We also have Sparks. He is a Cornish Rex, and I should have said Fig's 17 this year, so is Sparks. So although they couldn't be more different, they are brothers from another mother, and they've been together for almost 17 years, like best friends as well. So adorable. And we have Bucky, he's our Labrador, and we also have Peach, who's our axolotl, who hangs out in my daughter's bedroom.
wow, so you've really got a little menagerie going on at home. Do they
Yeah.
all, well, I'm sure that axolotl doesn't hang out with the dogs and cats, but dogs and
No.
cats presumably get on okay?
Yes, it was a bit of a worry. So Bucky's 6, coming up to 6. So obviously the cats were like 11 when we decided to bring a puppy home. So I was like, how is this going to go? And it put all my skills to the test. But thankfully, they did so well. It did take a little while to introduce them, but they get on so good. And it's sometimes like you'll watch the cat like walk past or step over the dog's nose, and I have a little moment where I'm like, oh wow, like look at them. They're all just totally living happily without any dramas. So yeah, that couldn't
Mm.
have gone any better. It's been really good.
It's so rewarding. I have a like long-term customer who thankfully like it's not we're working on the same issue, but if other things come up, she'll pop me a message.
Okay.
She got into a new relationship, and she's got 2 dogs and he had a cat. And she was wanting to bring the dogs like for sleepovers so that she could go and stay there.
Mhm.
And neither of them had ever met a cat before, and I don't think he'd ever met a dog. And like that first consult, like what you're doing, but it's still so scary because you're like,
Yeah.
oh god, this could go so badly. And we just did it, super, super slowly and gently. And then I don't know, 3 or 4 months later, she sends me a picture of them all just chilling out on the floor. I was like,
Oh
oh,
yes.
best thing ever. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
actually gonna
amazing.
just I'm gonna add in a secret extra question then, Lucy, because I think it might be helpful. How did you integrate your puppy?
Ooh. So I think I think it benefited me that I was coming from the cat side, if you know what I mean. So
Mm.
it was like all of my priorities. Well, let's say 51% of my priorities were on the cats and 49 on Bucky, because my dog. Because it was like I think it's easy to focus on the dog and be like, right, what do we need him to do now? and then no one really knows how to manage the cat side of things. And I think for me, it was like, well, what we're bringing in a dog, so what do the cats need? And so it was a case of like making sure they had choices. They could come and go if they wanted to interact, they could, but if they didn't, there was no pressure. I wasn't like making that happen. Because so often I think that people like they want to do that first meeting, and so they get the cat and they're like, here's your dog, or they'll take the dog over to the cat and be like, do the meeting, here they are. And then obviously that goes quite badly for cats because they don't have any say, and obviously the dog's caught unaware, and so you might see
Mm.
behaviors you wouldn't necessarily expect or want. So it was like making sure they could choose, making sure the environment was set up to help them be together. So plenty of high places so they could look down and suss them out and be like, what am I looking at here? What have you brought into my home? Without them being like down on the floor where they could potentially be like chased or whatever. So the first bit was actually quite good because Bucky was really, we got him when he was 8 weeks, so he was little and he was very sleepy. And there was a lot of times where we could have them together where Bucky was just really chilled and quiet, and the cats could just sort of scout him out and come and go, and I had treats, and it was just really, really gently, and that's really how we started it. I think the problem then came when obviously the puppies grow and they become adolescents and they're like a bit more unpredictable, and that could be difficult for cats because Bucky's really friendly, but he's got no sense of personal space. So
Right.
he'll go running over and he'll be like sniffing around their ears and like sniffing their bums and being like hi. And obviously cats are like, I need some space. So I was having to do a lot of management there, like redirecting him away. Obviously, after the first time, I knew that was going to happen again. So you could sort of preempt that and get Bucky's attention and then give the cat some space to get up high. And so it was a lot of management in those first couple of years, but once he settled into a sensible grown-up dog, it's been a breeze. We haven't had to do any management now. They just do it all themselves. There's no drama between them at all.
That's really good. I think from what you've said, you obviously are a professional and know what you're doing, but from the dog side of things, possibly you hit the jackpot genetically as well. Because
Yeah.
obviously sometimes people were like, oh, we're trying to integrate the dog, and you're like, oh my God, this dog? This dog of
Oh,
all the dogs, you know?
yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, it was definitely like all three animals actually. I've won the lottery with them because they're so good. But I did have to do a lot of like so for example, like a few months in, we suddenly noticed that the dog suddenly is getting super like boisterous in the evenings, whereas he used to be really really settled in the evenings, and that's when we would do a lot of the meetings. But now we were like, why is he suddenly like now it's the witching hour at 6 p.m. rather than 2 p.m. So we were having to take him for an extra walk, and we were having stuff ready like long lasting chew toys and like loads of new toys that we could engage him in. So it was a lot of we definitely had luck on our side, but there was a lot of sort of troubleshooting to be like, oh, this isn't quite going right. What can we do to help that go better? So it was a lot of just like thinking on the spot and just trying to manage the situation at hand rather than just sort of doing all the work at the beginning and then letting it run. You still have to like check in and be proactive with that stuff.
yeah, it's that critical thinking, isn't it? And also not relying on what has worked previously, because so often with animals, we'll sort of go, well, last time I did this, it was fine. But we
Yeah.
have to be able to kind of say, okay, well, this has changed. So,
Yep.
what are we going to do differently?
Yep.
Okay, Lucy, so what are the most common things that you're called out to see in your job?
It tends to be cats that don't get along or cats that are weeing at places where we don't want them to wee. So I'm lumping in there like cats that spray and then cats that just wee on, normally like weeing on furniture, because if your cat wees on your bed, then your mattress probably needs replacing. Like it's a massive deal. It's not just something you can like tick along with for a long time before you need help. So yeah, that's the main
Mm.
ones I think.
Yeah, because I mean, I am not a clinical behaviorist with cats, but I did the masters and I could, in theory, treat a cat case. And I sort of have found that the interest is less than there is for dogs. And my theory has always been that, well, most feline behavior problems we can put a plaster on, can't we, or sort of ignore.
Yeah.
But I suppose the ones that you've mentioned are the ones that no, we have to do something about this. It's unlivable in this situation.
Yeah, so with that, I would definitely say when cats don't get along, there's so much emotion that comes with that a lot of people find that hard to cope with. So it'll be like, I brought home a kitten and now my older cat hates him. And so I feel so guilty for bringing that kitten home, even though I only brought it home so it would be a friend for my older one. So, but I love the kitten now and I love the older one and I don't want to give. And so all that emotion is just so hard to deal with. Whereas if your cat's just like attacking your ankles when you go for a wee in the night, you're like, this is really annoying, but it's fine. Like there's not that whole
Yeah.
like emotion that comes with it. So yeah,
Yeah,
there's no point.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I always think, with dogs, you have to take that out in public, whereas cats,
Yes.
most of the time, you can hide it. So
Oh,
I guess
absolutely.
that's the other thing that kind of means that dogs get seen so much more.
Yeah.
And what do you think are, in terms of welfare, what do you think are the biggest issues facing cats today?
This is an excellent question, and there are a few. So I think one of them that we need to talk about is like breeding. So cats at the moment, like compared to dogs, they haven't been as bred in as extreme ways, but we're going that way. And I think probably this is a good moment to be like, let's pause and rein it in a little bit, because obviously we've got the Persians that have got their brachycephalic. I can never say that word. You know what I mean? The flat face.
Brachycephalic.
Yes.
Everyone knows what you mean.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, and I've worked with a few that just they're not really coping very well because they can't really like I don't know function as well. And even the fact that the Persians come with like big, really difficult to maintain coats as well, like their fur is like candy floss. So we're breeding cats that in some cases almost can't take care of themselves, and they need us to intervene in so many ways. So I think I would like to see that not continue really. If we could just pause now and just love cats for what they are, because the other side of that is that people love the wild nature of a cat. Like on the flip side of like the savannah cats and like the really wild cats, again, it's going the other way, and like they're almost too independent and they take care of themselves in such a way that it's difficult for us to live with. Like they become aggressive if they're not happy, or they're so territorial that it's really difficult for them to function with other animals. Sometimes, obviously, other times it's fine. So that's definitely one area.
Can I just jump in, Lucy, before you
Yeah.
go on to the next point in terms of breeding? What are
Mm.
your thoughts on Sphinx cats?
Sphinxes is hard because I have met so many sphinxes and they've got the most lovely characters.
You're going to say like
And
pugs, the best characters
oh,
in the whole
really?
world.
Oh,
Yeah, and
really?
just
Oh, okay.
genetically fucked.
Oh, yeah, that's the problem. And so sphinxes have been banned recently in the Netherlands, which was a surprise because like the Scottish fold has also been banned because obviously they've got like the condition where there is a folded over, and that obviously causes painful joints and they can't really live like a great life because of that. So sphinxes, they don't have such a degree of high medical needs and concerns, but I see this as a positive move because it's just giving that message across of like, we need to prioritize their welfare over the looks. And I think that some like there's little things where I have my Sparks is a Cornish Rex. As you know, I got him 17 years ago, and since getting him have learnt like, oh, okay, like that maybe wasn't the best breed for me to choose because he's got little tiny curly whiskers rather than like the big long one. So that's not, I guess that's not really making much of a difference in terms of like how he communicates. But if you had like a Sphinx cat, like their tails can't puff up, so that's one way they
Mm.
can't tell you if they're feeling a little bit unsure or like panicking in the moment. And the same with like the Scottish Folds, like they can't tell you there is don't go back in the same way. So there are definitely issues with lots of different breeds in terms of their health, but also how they communicate, how they function just day to day. So yeah, I wouldn't like if I met a Sphinx, I know I would love it because I have met so many lovely ones, but I wouldn't encourage anyone to get one, or I wouldn't promote the breed. And I'm not going to
Hmm.
get another Rex myself unless it's a rescue one day, but I'm all for the adopt don't shop at this point.
Hmm.
And your moggies, I love a good moggie.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like and I'm sure there's problems, but just temperament-wise, I really like the Asian breeds. They're so chatty, aren't they? That's my
Oh yeah,
favorite thing. I love a
really.
noisy cat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They're so sweet. They're so lovely. There is a lot of differences in terms of temperament among the breeds as well. But I think that you can find all those characters in moggies if you look hard enough. If you wait for the perfect match, they're
Mm.
there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm sure you're absolutely right. So sorry, I interrupted you. So you had welfare issue number one, breeding. What
Yes.
else were you going to tell me about?
Well, I wonder whether I'm just going off on one really, but I've put
It's all right.
like the more and more pressure we're putting on cats in terms of like their living requirements. So like
Yes.
how many cats we have in a household, whether or not they go in outdoors, or even sometimes you go into, well, I go into someone's home and you wouldn't even know they had a cat because there's no stuff there. There's no cat tree. There's no furniture. Like their litter tray is hidden away in a cupboard behind the like sofa, and it's just. I think that can just make life difficult for a lot of cats, and so that's another one I would add to the list.
Mm. Well, I can imagine with ugh, God, it's one of those where it's like I'm gonna get on my soapbox here, but so many young people don't have the finances for big houses and stuff like that, and quite rightly still want companionship, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we end up with people in flats, like one bedroom flats, no garden, no outside access, getting cats and dogs. And it's not by any means me, criticizing those people because I totally understand why everyone wants pets. But like you say, to then get multiple
Mm,
and start just, filling the rooms up with animals, it puts an incredible amount of pressure
yeah.
on cats and dogs and any other animal that you have in there. You touched upon a few things when we were talking about, the effects of sort of designer breeds. But in general, if anybody is listening to this and they've got a cat and they inevitably say, the cat doesn't tell me anything, I have no idea what he's thinking 99% of the time. How can cats tell us if they're unhappy? And also, how can they tell us if they are unwell?
Oh, I think one of the main things I would say is just to know what's normal for your cat. Because if you read online about the signs of pain, you'll see like how to tell if your cat's in pain or needs something from you. They sometimes contradict themselves. So it's like, oh, your cat might overgroom, or you might notice they don't groom as much. And so you're like, well, I don't know. How do I know which one it is? So then I would say if you notice any changes in your cat's normal behaviour, anything at all, whether they eat more or less, or whether they're more sociable, because when Fig became unwell, he's got diabetes, and in his later years he's become so much more sociable, which you wouldn't normally expect if a cat gets older and is like then a little bit poorly. You'd think that they might withdraw or hide away, and that again, that is signs that they're not themselves. But he's done the opposite. So obviously I knew he was unwell because he had diabetes, but it's definitely been something I've noticed over time. Also, any changes to their drinking habits or toileting habits as well, just like, oh, he seems to be drinking. Well, I've seen him drinking and don't normally see him drink as much, then I'd worry about that. But in terms of their behavior, they're not geared to tell us when something's up. We have to decipher it, we have to read it, and it's not going to be shown to us. We have to really check in and think, oh, that's weird. He's not making that jump as easy as he used to. And like things that you would normally see, I wouldn't just put them down to like, oh, that's different now. I would think, why is that
Mm,
different? And is that something we need to explore?
mm. What is so in the dog literature, and I know that obviously it crosses into cats, but just interested about your actual anecdotal experience. We know from the literature that there's a huge amount of crossover between pain and problem behavior in many species, but cats and dogs. How often would you say that you go out to a cat and there is an underlying sort of medical situation going on?
Oh, that's an interesting question because the amount of cats where there actually is something that's been diagnosed wrong is quite small, I'd say. Like normally they get the all clear, but the amount of times when something comes up later or I'm like questioning, like, is this cat actually well, is so much more than you'd expect. I can't really put a
Mm,
number on it, but I'd say a lot, like half, where I'm like, I'm not quite sure. Like I was dealing with a cat who was weeing at the back door, and then we needed to change the tray setup, so we changed it all around. She was weeing perfectly in the trays all the time, literally like almost said goodbye and was like, that's like a case well done. Like glad to have solved that one. And then all of a sudden, she started weeing there again, and it was like a few days she'd wee, and there'd be like some really small patches, and then she would use the tray again, fine. And I was like, this seems like there's something up. This like that would. There was no reason for it. There was no like behavioural trigger. There was nothing in the environment that would have caused it. Trays were all as they had been. So I'm not a vet myself, so I can't call it, and I can't
yeah.
like say, that cat sounds like it has a UTI, but also in the same way, I'm thinking that would fit very well with cystitis or another sort of urinary infection, or any sort of underlying pain can cause them to just not feel right and just throws out all their
Mm,
toileting habits. So I always struggle with that because I think vets, like, they're limited in terms of what time they have, which is totally
of course.
understandable, and they don't have the time to do like every test in the world, and the owner doesn't have the money to do like, well, can you just rule out every single potential medical cause before we do a behavioral check? So quite often they've been given like a go ahead to do a behavioral assessment, whereas there could still be something underlying that we just haven't really got to that bit yet, where, you know, they need a CT scan or an MRI. Like that wouldn't happen until we were way down the line past all the behavioral stuff that then hasn't worked. So yeah, it's definitely a big factor.
It's really interesting, and it's something I struggle with as well. And actually, a way that I found to make this easier for myself with dogs is, and obviously not for UTIs, but for musculoskeletal issues. And for the listeners, that's anything to do with basically any of the muscles or the bones or joints or whatever, is to have a physio review the dog so that then they can send it back to the vet, because obviously the physio can come out for 90 minutes and sort of write a report. Is that an option for cats?
I've never known that happen in my whole life.
Wowzer. Okay,
Yeah,
there's a
which
job for, right, that's my next venture, everybody.
that would be amazing. Yeah, and it's hard because like I say, I'm not a vet, but people send videos over for you to see one thing. Like a common one's like aggression to a person. So I'll be like, have you got any videos of it? I always have to say like, don't create this video. Like,
Yeah.
don't go over and like make it happen. But have you got any videos? And then you see like they've almost their mindsets flicked where they're like, I'm not okay, and if you come towards me, I'm going to bite you or scratch or like lunge at you. And then it's trying to figure out like what has put him in that state rather than like why is he attacking. We know why he's attacking because he's not okay, something, but what's that first step? So
Mm.
then it's up to me to say, you know, you need to go and find someone that can tell you that, because unless it's a behavioral cause, I'm not going to be able to do that. So like we have to all work as a team in terms of like behaviorists, owners, vets, and let's add physios in there as well, because that, yeah, I think anyone that can help like unpick the problem or put this puzzle together is worth having on board, because sometimes it's not possible for behaviorists to do on their own if there is an underlying medical something.
I'm having a colleague of mine called Kaylee that's a physio that sees about 80% of the dogs that I see these days now,
Okay.
because I just send them all her way. She's coming on the podcast, I think the next episode after
Oh
you.
wow,
And so I'm going to
amazing.
tell her that that's the gap in the market for her to make her millions: cat physio.
Yes, that would be amazing.
So, next question, and this is probably a biggie, and I realise that you probably have customers in both parks, and I'm not expecting you to be controversial unless you wish to be, but I would love
Okay.
to have the discussion about indoor versus outdoor cats and how you feel about this and whether you think one is better than the other. Let's just talk about that.
Yeah, okay. So my personal feeling is better to have some outside access. Like the best thing ever for me is that both my cats just sit in the grass. So
Mm,
I can just let them out and they'll just reliably go and sit in the grass and they'd smell the air. They won't go over the fences. So I have not been in the position where I'm like, oh, my cat's wandering near the main road. And so I think if I was in a different life or with some different cats, I may feel strongly different in a different way. In that, like, of course, you can't let them out because they might go near the main road. But I have no judgment on this. Like, if someone keeps their cat inside, that's fine for me. And if they let them out, that's also fine for me. Everyone feels differently on it. Everyone feels strongly, because you may have had a cat that was run over. Or you may have a cat that you know love, you watch them and they love to go outside and you wouldn't want to take that away from them. So yeah, there is a lot of variation between what the cat needs, what the environment can offer, because sometimes it's not worth letting them out. If you have like a tiny outside space and a main road there, they're not going to get any benefit from it, and the risks
yeah.
massively outweigh the benefits. Whereas if you live like in the middle of nowhere, then and you have a small house yourself, then you could see that there's a big benefit to letting them out and
Hmm.
exploring all that space. So yeah, what I would say is that I haven't noticed a big like sway in indoor cats having more behavior problems. I know that on paper that probably is a thing, in that like if someone's researching this, they may notice that you know indoor cats show more behavior problems in terms of like if you're in a multi-cat household, they haven't really got an opportunity to get away from each other as much as if they had outdoor access and stuff. So you may notice like it has a knock on in that sort of respect, but generally like people that do live in like high rise apartments and they've got cats that just want an easy life, they just want to
Mm.
sit on someone's lap and they just want to hang out and they've got no desire to go out there at all, then that is a good match. And I wouldn't be like, this cat needs to go outside. So So yeah, there's definitely a big debate there. It's impossible to have this debate with anybody though, because if you meet with someone who feels very strongly on either side, you can never win, because everyone's got really valid arguments on both sides. And so this is why you'll see people like argue till they're blue in the face online or wherever, because there is no right or wrong. Like both sides have very valid points that you can't argue against. Indoor cats live longer. Like that's a very difficult fact to
Mhm.
ignore. Outdoor cats generally are less obese. They've got less risk of, yeah, like they can cope better with stress because they've got that option to go there. These are very good reasons to let them out as well. So yeah, it's not an easy one to answer, but I just fall down the middle.
Yeah, I think I do as well because people have asked me that question. And I know there's a charity, I'm not going to name it because I'm not 100% confident on who it is, but there is a charity that only rehomes cats to indoor homes. And
Mm.
I just think, like, how can you put them all in the same box? Like, surely if you've got a
Yeah,
semi-feral or something like that, you can't be having that as an indoor cat, you know.
yeah, yeah,
And
true.
similarly, I've seen some outrageous, stunning catios. I'm sure you have
Oh
as well,
yeah,
like the most
yeah, yeah.
fantastic things. And I also think that's a really, really good option. Is your house nice and cat? Like, have you got climbing areas and one of those incredible walls that they can get up to the ceiling and all of that stuff?
I haven't, to be honest,
Oh,
because well, we moved house. I did in my old house. We had shelvings going up, like a little route up and a route down. It was really good, and I was really proud of it. And that's when we got the puppy. But we moved to a new house like 3 years ago. And bearing in mind, both cats are 14. They're not
yeah,
using them. They're not going up. Like they just want to sit on a lap or a bed or we've got cat tree. We've got a great big cat tree, but they will sit on it occasionally, but they're not looking for shelving at this point. I'm very aware that in my future, hopefully not too soon, but there's probably going to be some more cats that are more like that are not so like ideal. Like the cats I've got now, they're just so good in every way that I'm thinking the next ones they're going to throw me a curveball. I know it. They're going to
yeah,
be in the main range. They're going to be hunting. They're going to be like really difficult, and so the cat shelving's in my future, I think.
yeah, I love it. I had this really great client who had, it's really hard to explain to people who are listening, so I'll try and make this really quick. But if you imagine a square with a cross in the middle, and then each sort of corner was a room, and then this structure in the
Oh,
middle
okay.
with doors separating each room.
Oh,
And then I
that's
asked them to
amazing.
put all of this climbing stuff up the middle so that their kittens could get up off the floor. Oh,
Oh, I love
just
that.
the kind of stuff that just gets you super excited to do this job, hey?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm actually going to just switch some of my questions around because you've just touched on something that I wanted to talk about, and that is
Okay.
hunting. And
Oh,
obviously, for various reasons, many of us don't like the unwanted half dead mouse arriving in our bed in the night.
yeah, okay.
Um, what do you generally suggest for people who have, or, well, actually, sorry, listeners, this is me going off on a little tangent, but I include predatory behavior as, ankle attacking and that sort of thing as well. Anything that's kind of within that predatory sequence. How do you
Yeah.
tackle those issues, or what do you suggest, Lucy?
So if it's the hunting itself, then I don't know any way of stopping them hunting. Like in all honesty, like there are plenty of things you can do to help in that like we don't want them to be super hungry. So you don't want to like if you feed your cats breakfast and dinner, there's a long time in between where they're not eating. So they're probably going to go out and hunt something if they're so inclined. And lots of play and lots of stimulation at home as well. So they're not like I need to chase something. So it might as well be a mouse or a bird. But I do think if they're not prolific hunters and like decimating everything, then I'm like, oh, it's sad and I hate it as well. But that's what they're designed to do. And a few hundred years ago, we were like, I need a cat to catch all the wildlife around me, and now we're like, I need a cat and you mustn't catch anything. So
Mhm.
it's not really fair. But in terms of that predatory behavior you would see in the house, I think that that's a really dangerous problem because it starts as one problem, but then it quickly develops into something much, much worse. And that's when I'm called in. So, like, if you're noticing cats that chase your ankles in the night, or like when you're talking on the phone, you're waving your hands around, your cat's jumping at your hands, that's like typical predatory behavior. And predatory, all we mean by that is just misdirected play, because
Mhm.
like hunting and play essentially the same thing. You see the same patterns of behavior, like wiggly bum and then like chasing and pouncing and grabbing with like both front paws. So this is all like misdirected play. So these cats like they find it hard not to chase moving things,
Mhm.
especially when they're little. So if you wear like flowy skirts, or I always use the example of like a dressing gown cord, when you like walk down the
Yeah.
stairs and your cord's behind you and the cat's chasing you down the stairs. that's all really normal behavior, and the cat's not doing anything wrong there. But obviously, we need to make sure that we're directing that into something more appropriate, like
Hmm.
toys, or like you could use like activity feeders to sort of use up all that hunting energy. The problem comes is when we try to manage that as people, we make it worse and we complicate it. So if your cat's like grabbing your ankles at night, what most people will do if it's hurting is shout and be like, ah, like you're hurting me, and we'll like shake them off. And then when the more that happens, the cat's thinking, ah, that was horrible. Like I was literally shaken off. Or they might tell them off, or they might grab them. And it's not that someone's trying to be mean to them, but it's trying to manage that really
Mm.
unpleasant thing that's happening at 2 o'clock in the morning when you didn't expect it. But this then changes that natural predatory, say, aggression in air quotes, because like I say, they're not trying to hurt you, they're just playing. But that's then quickly changing into real aggression because they're now a little bit scared and there's more emotions at play, and they're like, I really want to do this, but what happens if you might shake me off, or you might push me off, or like something bad might happen. And so then you might see more of this aggression happening just when you try to stroke them, or when you're walking past just to get past them, they might become a bit wary of feet and things. So I've seen this so many times that it's just it's like by the time you're trying to deal with a big problem, it's not predatory anymore. It's like learnt fear aggression.
Hmm.
So if you're having predatory aggression at the moment, I would just redirect that into as many toys and playtime as you possibly can. Put some wellies on, some big like boot slippers, and just don't reinforce it, don't react, and redirect it into something else because it's much, much easier to deal with than later down the line.
I'm just going to compliment my lovely dog on doing lovely quiet listening. Good job.
Oh,
It's the first day that he's joined me for a podcast recording, and it could have gone horribly wrong, but he's just looked
oh,
up at me like, Mummy, I'm still just sleeping down here.
oh, oh, he's so good.
He's a good boy. Just on that last note, before we move on to the next question, Lucy, could you fill the listeners in on laser pointers and the laser pointer conundrum?
Yep, so laser pointers are a bit controversial in that they generate a lot of play. So many cats will tear around the room, they'll be running up the curtains, they'll be doing everything to try and get that red dot. But of course, you can never catch it. You can never catch it. And like it's like people love to like wind the cats up by that, don't they? Like just as the cat catches it, they'll like shine it on the cat's paw and be like, "Oh, look, it's on your paw now," and things. And I get it, I do get it, but the problem is of like the risk here is that your cat has all this energy with nowhere to go. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of frustration there, and they need to catch something because they're getting right to the end of that hunting sequence where they've stalked it, they've chased it, they've pounced on it, and they've grabbed it, and there's just nothing there. That you might find that that's redirected onto something else. So it could be like you, or really what you want to do this is I don't think you should ban laser pointers altogether for cats. I couldn't be like, oh, you've used a laser, that's terrible, because if you have a cat that's really difficult to get playing and you need to use up that energy, it's quite good to get them up and like get them going, but you need to switch that out onto a real toy very quickly so they
Mhm.
do have something to catch, and they can complete that sequence. And so they well, the have a look at your cat and see, does the risks outweigh, do the benefits outweigh the risks?
That's really
Because if
interesting. I'd only ever heard it as a blanket no, but I hear what you're saying. If you need to get some, I suppose, is it mostly like to do with a cat who's a bit porky? You need to get them up and moving a little bit.
yeah, yeah, also, and like it's, I guess I'm leaning into owners that say to me, like, I haven't got time, I haven't got time to play, which, like, I mean, there's questions there, isn't there? It's like, I mean, maybe it's a young kitten who needs loads of play, so it's not great if you've not got the time to play. Then why did you bring a kitten home? But if it is, yeah, like we're trying to get him to lose weight, but I work full time, I've got children, I can't, I don't have time to play for half an hour, then it's a bit of a shortcut to that. It's like, you can spend 5 minutes getting him up and making sure he's actually playing, and swap it. After 30 seconds, let's swap it for some one toy play that he can chase around and catch and do all that stuff. And then it's normally a good in for the play session, just to feed into like making it a little bit more convenient for people.
That's really good to know. And I think it separates the, sorry to get on my high horse here, but I think it separates the behaviorists that have actually been out in the field mucking in and had to kind of just get into situations where they think, well, I've really been told that this is a no, but actually this seems like the only solution in this situation.
Yeah, yeah,
We sort of sometimes have to understand that we can't I mean, obviously there are certain things that would have an absolute blanket no, but certain things that we
Yeah.
have to be a bit more flexible on.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
glad you said that. Just so on that point, I'm glad you said that because
No.
that's like that's my entire ethos, I think.
Mm.
Like I would never, yeah, advocate for anything harmful or like that, it's a definite no. But everybody's different. Everybody's got like a different cat, a different environment, different time commitments. And I just think if we're really rigid with that stuff, it doesn't help. It helps to be a little bit more flexible and just sometimes, yeah, take on board what people are doing and how they need to work specifically. I think that really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. My sort of way to summarize it, and I always say to people, is as long as you are doing your best and you truly are
Yeah.
doing your best, that animal cannot ask anything else of you.
Oh, yeah,
Because
that's good.
none of us are perfect at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, can we train a cat? And if we did to train a cat, is it just for fun, or are there things that you actually encourage people to do training wise that are really helpful to them?
So I think it's definitely, yes, we definitely can train cats. The one thing I would definitely train is walking into a carrier.
Hmm.
Because getting cats into carriers, I'm sure the listeners will like understand that can sometimes just be really difficult, and it can mean you miss your vet appointment, and so your cat's not getting like proper vet care, just not because you don't want to go, but you can't get them there. So walking into a carrier is one thing. It's I mean it's I was gonna say it's not easy, but it's only not easy if your cat hates the carrier. It's easy if you do it from the beginning when they don't have any, like, they love boxes. So it should be easy to encourage them in. It's the first time they then just are carted off to the vets. They're like, oh, I'm never going in there again. So right from the beginning, leave the carrier out, leave some treats in it, put a blanket in there, like let them make that their own little comfy bed, and then it's much easier to take them to the vet. So that's one good thing. Other training
Lucy,
things tend
Lucy, sorry to interrupt you. I know there'll
go.
be people sat there thinking, well, I've had this cat 10 years. It's too late now.
Okay.
So, how would we do
Oh,
that with a cat that already has carrier problems, shall we
okay, so
say?
it's not too late, but it is harder. So I would have like the type of carrier where it's big plastic box, as big as you can get, and you can take the top half off. It has like clips around the side, and you can take the top half off. So I would just take the top off and have the bottom there, put the blanket in, and then just leave treats in it every now and again. Like you can use a clicker. If I guess this is a dog podcast, isn't it? So maybe your listeners will be familiar with like clicker training. You could do the same for a cat, like once you've charged up your clicker and they know what the click means, when they walk into the carrier, you can click and then give them a treat, so they know like, oh, I'm going in. That's what I'm getting rewarded for, is actually going in
Hmm.
here. So once they're comfortable with that, then you can put the lid on with the door off and do the exact same thing, treats inside. But no pressure here. We don't need them to stay in it for any amount of time. They can go in and out as much as they want to. And then it's a case of then introducing the door, then closing it behind them just briefly. And then once you're at that point, you've got your tools there that you could, on the day of the vets, put your treats in. Once they go in, close it behind them, and then go. And then once you come back, you'll probably have to do a little bit more training again to be like, oh, that wasn't
Sorry.
great. But yeah, like, but every time they go in the carrier, it's 1 in 100 they go to the vets. 99 out of 100 they just chill out in there. So that will hopefully help. But yeah, it's not impossible with an older cat, and it definitely helps. There's loads more about reducing stress at the vets that we could talk through, but the carrier training is the biggest thing you can do because, like I say, like then you're taking a little pocket of territory to the vet rather than like the moment they're in the carrier being like, this is terrible. I'm really scared. So with other sorts of training, it tends to be more like enrichment based stuff. So you can train them to do anything. I'm really bad at training. Like once years ago, I had to do a training assessment for my masters. They're like, oh, you've got to train your cats to do something. So I trained them to like sit on their back feet and like wave their paws around. And I was all clicking at the wrong point and I didn't really get very far with it. But that was like 13 years ago and they still do it now. Like when I'm getting their food ready, they'll sit on their back feet and they'll wave their paws around. It looks adorable. But I'm like, why have you never forgotten that? Like I could never put it on cue. I got a really bad mark, but they still think like, oh, if I want a treat, I have to do this. So
Well, it was
I
obviously
have,
very salient to them, Lucy. So,
yeah, I know, but I mean, it's silly, really. But yeah, I would not recommend training a high five either because it seems like the most easiest, most adorable thing ever. If you hold your treat up above their head, your cat will definitely paw at it. But what sometimes happens is then they'll be pawing you for everything, and if you don't give it to them straight away, then the claws will come out not as a scratch, but just because that frustration sets in and they're just like, oh, I'll try it with claws. And then you end up with like scratches down your face because when you're asleep, they're trying to be like, come on, have you got any treats in here? Try pouring at you. So, yeah, it is good. And I have also been looking at stuff like pattern games. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
do that with
absolutely.
dogs and things. Yeah, I've only just sort of discovered that, like, oh, this could be good for like introducing cats, where like you've done like a lot of the legwork already, where they've sort of met each other and like that you've used barriers and it's all slow and gradual, but then they're in the same room together. If you had two people, maybe you could use that like putting treats in the bowls and like, what's
Mhm.
the do you know the one I mean? It's like it's got a
You
special name, hasn't it?
Yeah, I don't
Is
use
it
it, so I also can't remember, but essentially I'm pretty
okay?
sure it's just called the box game, but you're
Okay.
counting, or you're at least just dropping treats into a box and you're getting them to orient
Yes,
away from each other rather than
that's it.
fixating on each other at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. So I think that can be good where like what we tend to find is when cats are in the same room together, they don't know each other, they're focused on each other and then things
Mm.
escalate. So we're just distracting them really. And so I think that that works really well for that. So there's definitely a place for training with any behavior problem, but it's not always as easy to do, I think, as with a dog.
Yeah, I mean, the way it was always explained to me, or that I understood it, is they're capable, just as capable of learning, but they're just not quite as motivated to please, are they? We have to sell
Absolutely.
it to
Yeah.
them a lot more.
Yeah, and do it in really short sessions as well, like just a 2 minute session a couple of times rather than like, right, we're gonna do a half an hour training. It was just like really short bursts when they've got that motivation there.
Mm, yeah, that's a really good tip. So you've touched on multi-cat households. I don't know if you find this, but I always find that if someone has one cat, they've got more than one. I don't know. People just they just collect cats. What do you
Yeah.
think makes a multi-cat? So just in case I'm saying that really quickly and you can't hear what I'm saying, listeners, multi-cat. So households with more than one cat in them. What makes them work, and what most frequently is it that causes problems, do you think?
So I think getting the territory set up right is the biggest thing you can do to help multi-cat household go right. So by that, like remember that cats are territorial. So when I'm talking about territory, I'm just talking about our houses. Like that's what it is essentially. But it depends on how many cats you have and it depends on what they need. So and what they find important. So if you have two cats, then you'll have a much better job at helping them get along because you've only got that one dynamic to think about and you can look at like what's their favorite things in the territory. It's going to be like food, water, the best places to sleep, the scratch post, the toys, the litter trays, like the things they use and the things they need. So we want to make sure there's no competition for that stuff. So there has to be enough to go around and it has to be super spread out so that if they want to be on their own and have their own mini territory in your big home, then they can do that. So what we're doing by doing this is just we're putting it all on them to make their own decisions and make their own choices and make that relationship if they want to. Like you
Hmm.
can't force it. You just have to like get it right, get the layout right, set the scene, and be like, there's another cat here. If you want to make friends with them, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. So they can choose when they interact. They can be apart. They're not thinking, right, oh, it's tea time. I'm going to have to go and see that other cat now because this is the only
Hmm.
place where the food is, and that's when my owner puts it down. And same with like there there's probably plenty of places to sleep in your house, but your cats will have their favorites. Like it could be the bed in the afternoon because that's where the sun shines, or it could be like the top of the cat tree because it's the highest point. So we need to make sure we're looking at this specifically. Like there's no set rules. It has to be like look at your cats, look at where they want to be, look at where if there's any drama, like where's that happening and what's it around? Because it could be that they both want to sleep in that bed at the top of the cat tree, so they're swiping each other, or like they're sitting on that bed in the afternoon, but they don't want to be there. They don't want to be together. They just want to be right there. So you can look at their body language and like their ears are back and they've got their backs to each other and they don't want to interact, but they're like, oh, look, this is the sunny bit of the bed. I want to be here.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so yeah, I think if you were to put in enough thought in terms of how the territory is set up with two cats, it's probably most likely that either they'll get along great or they will like live happy lives like housemates rather than family, and that's totally
Mhm.
fine as well. But I think the problems come when you have too many cats at once
Mhm.
because there are lots of different dynamics to look at. Like it's not just now the three or four or five, it's like how does number one get on with number two? How does number one get on with number three? How does number one get on with number four? And then you have to do that for every combination of cats. And that's really difficult to manage just in terms of like practical space and like setup and things. How can you stop them all from crossing paths if you live in a two up, two down and there's just so many cats there? So I think it's useful to find a good match if you can. Like again, there's a lot to think about there, but you don't want like two really confident, like territorial cats together because they might struggle to be with each other. Likewise, if you've got like a really boisterous cat that loves to play all the time, then they might want a playmate. They might want someone that they can do that with rather than just like a little old lady who just wants to sit on your lap for the
Yeah.
night. So that's hard because there's no one rule fits all for that either.
Yeah.
You have to give it some thought. And I'd also say as well, just in terms of like making sure it's none of the cats are stressed just in their own right, because you'd want, if you had a 5 cat household, you want 5 happy cats, 5 happy healthy cats that can then get on together. Because if any of them are stressed by anything, be that like cats outside or like if they're super unsocialized, so they're scared around you, they're not going to be in the right frame of mind to make friends. Like they're going to be like emotionally not there. They're going to be worried about their own sort of well-being before they can then get on with another cat house.
I think
So
that's
yeah,
that's
tricky.
yeah, that's a really, really good piece of advice. And it just because, on my soapbox again, I'll never get off it. That's if one of your
Mhm.
cats is unwell or in pain, they're never going to make the best choices about hanging out with other cats, regardless of, how much potential that match has, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like I say, like if it's fine for cats to live separately, like to not interact, but it's just hard to do that, isn't it? Like you can't split your house
Mm.
into like 5 different spaces with everything that they would need in it to help them do that. So yeah, it's not an easy one, but sometimes it works. And I go into a house and I think, how's this working? But it is working. So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I can imagine that there's a few cases where you sort of have to really question the prognosis, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
Bless you. All right. This is a bit of a segue now, slightly different topic. What I've written is dogs get a really hard time on social media. Do cats get the same thing?
Oh. Yeah, I find on social media the most difficult things is like people just winding them up. That's the thing that just annoys me the
Mm.
most. And trends, like there was that trend recently. I think the dogs got this one as well. But like, how many times can you pat your cat on the head before it bites you? And then there was that music that's like really fast music, and someone's hand was like pat 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 on the top of their cat's head. And then obviously every cat would bite by the end
Yeah.
of that, and I just thought, "Why are you doing that?" And the whole, like, cats versus cucumber thing, like, they were leaving a cucumber next to the cat just to see it sort of jump, then all the
Question though, Lucy,
every
why? Why
yeah,
does the cat jump? Is it just it turns round and there's a novel object?
I think so, yeah, and, like, they're a prey species as well as a predator, aren't they? So,
Yeah.
like, at the forefront of their mind is like, "I must keep myself safe. I
Mhm.
must, like, run from something that's scary," and they haven't yeah, it's novel, like, they haven't had a chance to get used to it. I'm sure the more you did it, the less reaction you would see, but, yeah, they're quite, like, snake-like, aren't they, and just weird, sort of I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know. A
true. I
cucumber
never
is a
thought
weird
about that.
choice. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's every trend. There's never any trend that's just like, oh, I don't know. I can't think of anything,
How
but
nice
there's
can
no
you
trends
be
that
to
are
your
not.
cat for 90
Yeah,
seconds?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How much
exactly.
can
It's
you leave your
just
cat alone for 90
yeah,
seconds?
exactly. Yeah, it's really annoying, but I just yeah. I never lean in, obviously, but it's hard to see.
Yeah, there's one account, I won't name it, but I think it's Burmese, and it always does the arched back and all the hackles and the
Oh,
noise, that
oh,
one. And
yeah.
they film it as if like they're having a conversation with it.
Oh no.
So they'll be like, "Hey, blah 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 cat, like what's going on?" sort of thing, and then the cat will be like, "Meow, meow, 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 meow," and then it'll be like,
Oh yeah.
"Oh, well, that's fun, dude." Da, da. And this cat, has millions of followers just for being perpetually terrified because people
Oh
think
no.
it's funny, that this
Yeah.
cat is, I don't know what you call that, yowling or whatever,
Yeah.
back at the person, and it's so bizarre because he's arching his back like he's in the universal kind of shape of an unhappy cat, and
Oh
yet
yeah.
because it's on TikTok, fine.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's like any video I see of like a really aggressive cat. So like those cats you see that just look absolutely petrifying, where they're like hissing and they're
Mm,
snarling and they're like ready to actually kill you. It's because a person is there with a camera. It's that person has got closer when that cat's been hissing of like can you go away? You're getting really close to me.
Mm.
They've got closer and they've got closer. And so every time I see these videos, I almost want to like pause it and do like a little reaction video and to be like, if you just back off here, then your cat will be fine. Like your cat's not going to attack you unless you keep going towards it. Just give it some space. But it doesn't make good content, does it, if people do that?
No, absolutely. And none of us will ever learn this lesson that nobody cares what we
Oh,
say, but makes us feel
yeah,
better, hey? Sometimes, maybe.
yeah.
I have a completely personal question, which is for my own
Mm,
interest, but I'm sure other people
okay.
will find interesting. Why do cats religiously push things off of shelves and
Oh.
countertops and tables?
Oh, I love that about them though, don't you? They're so
Yeah, I
silly.
do. It's the
Um,
best thing ever.
yeah, I always think that this is just a combination of cats being like really curious and like quite playful. So I always think like if you're a cat and you're up there, like they like to like manipulate things with their paws and move things around, and it's just too tempting, isn't it, to just like give it a little tap and just see what happens? Because I
Hmm.
remember they're territorial, so this is something in their territory. They don't know. They need to figure this out. They want to like, I don't know, just work it out. And so once they tap it and it moves, then that's like self-rewarding. That's like, well, that was amazing. And then so the nearer the edge of the table it is, if it's going over the edge, that's the best reward ever, isn't it? So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I suppose we probably, depending on what your cat finds reinforcing, can reinforce it by laughing and
yeah,
talking to the cat and putting more objects up there. I suppose we
yeah,
just
exactly.
build that
Yeah.
up for ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, there's so many examples of behaviours where that's a thing as well. It's like I once met a cat who like so when cats scratch furniture, obviously they're normally just using it as a scratch post. Like they're maintaining their claws, and that's the best thing there. But there's one cat he used his scratch post as well because it was like scratched loads. But he would literally like go over to the sofa when the owner was there, look over to her, and then like do just a couple of scratches, wait and like waiting to be like, "Are you gonna like what are you gonna
Mm.
do?" And she knew like not to be mean to him, so she was just like being kind to him. So she was going over like, "Oh no, don't do that! Like take your claws off," and like giving him some like nice attention. So it was so clear the way he was like looking over, waiting for that reaction. And the fact that he didn't even need to use it because he was using the scratch post anyway, that yeah, that and like meowing at night. That
Mm.
is like another one where it starts like they just meow sometimes, don't they? So it just starts off like random 2 a.m. meowing that probably would have just lasted a couple of minutes, is now them meowing from 2 till 6 until you get up and give them breakfast because we've like jumped up and like, what do you need? You're meowing at 2 a.m. What do you need? Do you need some
Yeah, do
food?
you
Do
want
you
a
need some
whole bowl of
company?
food? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So many people have that problem, but at the beginning it was nothing, and then it's because of what we've done that now it's a really big problem. We have to unpick it as per
Yeah.
usual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think I would pull my own eyeballs out if I had a cat that was meowing from 2 till 6 in the morning
Oh, I know.
because I would never have the heart to do anything horrible. So I would just suffer
Yeah. The thing
endlessly
is,
until the
it
end
wouldn't
of
help.
time.
It wouldn't help if you tried something horrible as well, because people like at 2 a.m. when you are just woken up and you know you need to get back to sleep, people will try anything. So I have met people that have been like,
Mm,
I wish I hadn't, but I literally like threw him off the bed or whatever. Obviously it doesn't help. They're just back the next second to be like, I still want something.
yeah, yeah,
But my cat Sparks, he does have a habit of meowing at night, but we all just ignore it, and it only lasts a few minutes, and that's that. But I know I almost see it happening. I'm like, if I get up now, I'll be doing this for the rest of my life. So I just have to like
mm,
be like, no one like respond. Everyone just like leave him to do it, because sometimes they just do, and it's okay. So yeah, just ignore it. For anyone listening, just ignore the meowing at night. They're
yes.
supposed to do it. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a similar thing. Well, it's not so much a natural behavior, but in terms of us inadvertently reinforcing,
Oh
my
no.
dog's had a bit of a bad tummy. Like we've been juggling his
Oh
tummy for about a week. And while it was bad, he was scratching at the kitchen door to get us to go down and, give him some company or let him out or fill his water up. And he was doing it sort of a few times a night because he needed something. But now he's fine. And we still just get the
oh
and you're just like,
no.
absolutely not. I know that you're
Oh
fine now. Yes, you're a cheeky
yeah.
monkey. He just like wakes up in the
Okay.
night and thinks, just fancy seeing my mum for a bit, actually.
Yeah, which why wouldn't he? That makes total sense. That's the thing,
I
like, a lot
know.
of these problems, like, they're not even unreasonable. They're like,
No,
yeah, like, I don't want you to do that, but I can see exactly why you're doing it, and I
absolutely.
can't blame you
And
for it.
and if you really do need something, I'll be right there. But if you just want to
Yeah.
cuddle at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sorry, pal. Put your big boy pants on and go back to bed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, back to cats then, just to round us off, Lucy. If you could tell the listeners 3 things to remember about cats or how to make their cats happier, what would they be?
So my first one would be to remember that your cat's an individual. So whatever you see anyone else doing and is working for them, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. It doesn't mean you need to be doing that stuff. Likewise, if you had a cat that loved cuddles and like loved all the attention they can get when you were a kid, don't assume that that's what you're going to get if you get a cat now, because this is what I see quite often. Like, oh no, cats love like being rubbed on the tummy, whereas actually some do, most don't. So I think it really helps to remember that like there is no just standard cat.
Mhm.
They all have different needs. Secondly, is to think about what your cat would say. Whatever your decision is that you're querying over, like what would your cat say? And for this, really, I think like for example, I was working with someone who was saying to me like that their cat's quite happy being picked up. I pick him up, I move him off the bed, pick him up and move him onto the bed and put him on the floor. He was getting scratched. And he said, no, he's quite happy being lifted off the bed. And I wanted to say, like, what would your cat tell you if you could ask him? Because he would probably say, no, I don't like being picked up. Like lure him down. Fair enough. I don't want to get off the bed, is what he'd probably say. I want to stay here. But
Mhm.
we can lure him down with something, or we can like gently like move him. We don't have to pick him up and like put him down.
Mhm.
So same for if you're getting another cat, like, does your cat want you to get another cat? Have that thought first, because that is another one where, like I was saying earlier, no, if you make the wrong call on this and your cat's like, what the hell have you done? You've bought another kitten and I did not want this at all. The guilt that comes with that is just too much to bear sometimes. But it's like, have that thought first off, like, does my cat actually want another cat? Because it's a big
Mhm.
factor. And lastly, is just to remember that there are no bad cats. And
Oh,
I'm
I
standing
love
by that.
that.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that out there and I'm gonna stand by that for the rest of my life, because I've seen so many cats that are just on the face of it look horrible. Like they're spraying on people back of people's heads. They are like attacking children. They're on paper they look like the worst cats ever, but they're not. Like even the cats that are bullies and will like beat up every other cat in the house, it's because they're worried. It's because they're like, this is my territory and I don't want to share, and like I'm stressed about that, and there's always a reason for it. So I think it helps to remember that, because I'm like, well, you must know this with your dog work. It's like people are starting to band around the term dominance for cats, and I'm like, it doesn't help. It doesn't help to think, oh, he's just the dominant cat, because then your only mission then is to bring that cat down, and nobody wants that. That's not going to be helpful in any way. So whatever problem you're dealing with, just remember, like, there's a genuine reason for it. Your cat's not being a bad guy.
I love that. And I'm going to offline talk about this dominance BS with you because to then put that onto cats, oh my God. Thought we were
Yeah.
getting rid of it for dogs.
No.
Okay, this has been fantastic. I have loved talking to you, Lucy. It's been super, super interesting. Is there anything you would like to plug before I say goodbye to you? Plug or advertise?
Ooh, I do have a book. It's called The
Woohoo!
Book Your Cat Wishes You Would Read. It's available on Amazon. If you've read it, please leave me a review, because no one ever does, and like that's all people care about these days is Amazon reviews.
Mm,
So yeah, that's there. And if you're looking for mentoring, anybody, oh no, well that's like a different podcast. But if anyone's looking to get into cat behavior, then on my YouTube channel I have a mentoring thing there as well. So that might help
excellent
too.
work. And are you still taking new clients, Lucy? Do you do online work?
Yes. Yes, yep, online. And that works just as well as in person. So if you're reluctant to go online for cats, like there's no need to. Obviously, I love to meet them, but there's no like taking them out on walks or hands-on
Hmm.
training or anything like that. It's really just talking about the behaviour. So yeah, online works really well.
Perfect. I will drop Lucy's website and name of the book and everything in the episode description. I confess I haven't read the book, Lucy, and the reason is if you could see the about 250 books that are in front of my face that remain
Oh
untouched, and I made a
yeah.
promise to myself stop buying, but it is definitely on the list. I have some cat ones that are untouched, so it's up there. I've seen it in Waterstones as well, which I was thrilled to see for
Oh,
you. Great.
amazing. Thank you. Yeah. It's quite
But
long, though. That's the thing. I wouldn't begrudge you if it's at the bottom of your pile, because it's quite a long read, to be fair. I just spewed out everything I've ever thought about cats is in that book, so it's quite
oh,
a lengthy
well,
read.
I've just booked my mini moon for after my wedding this year, so maybe that's my
Oh
little
wow.
project to take away with me. And
Amazing.
dig my teeth into. All right. Well, I will leave you to the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me. That was fab, Lucy.
Ah, that's okay. Thanks for having me. It's always lovely to chat to you.
Thanks, Lucy. I'm sure you will join me in thanking Lucy for that wonderful interview, for sharing her wealth of knowledge. I certainly am going to be looking at things a little bit differently from now on. If you've enjoyed this episode of Talking Sit, please make sure you go back and listen to the others. If you want to share with your friends and family, please do. Please like, subscribe, and if you could leave me a review, that would be amazing. It makes so much difference. And I will see you next Wednesday for another episode of Talking Sit.